Hello, hello. All right. Took a brief little break after the Summer Game Fest last night. I decided to uh, do some off stream grinding to get closer back to where I was. I didn't get all the way back, just as we'll see in a little bit. I took a slightly different route, and as a result, have some different items that I need to show off first before getting back to the Soul Sanctum. But that's the plan. We're just gonna keep plugging away and trying to make as much progress as we can. So it's like nothing ever happened, man. You know, you just gotta just gotta act like you definitely didn't get killed by a bunch of very basic enemies after defeating the boss. But some slight changes. Namely, I did a bit more searching around, getting some extra charms after I had gotten the Mark of Pride for the Fungal Waste, the Shaman Stone from Forgotten Crossroads, and the Thorns of Agony from Green Path. And with the extra charms that I collected, I was able to buy an additional charm notch, so I'm at 6 right now, which allows me to equip both of these, which is super nice. These are probably going to be charms that are going to stay on my person for basically the entire run. Well, I say that. We're about to go and find another charm that is probably going to be a bit more useful for general exploration. So, the other thing that we did is that we're very broke, but in exchange we have a lovely Lumafly Lantern, which you can get from Sly's shop right here. And so rather than go back to the City of Tears to, go back through the Soul Sanctum, and I didn't refight Soul Master, so I don't have the dive attack yet. So we're going to have to do that again. A little bit of retreading, unfortunately, but it can't be helped. Because before we do that, I wanted to shift my focus a little bit. And you might be wondering, well, what's the point of going back to the start of the game? Well, as it turns out, the start of the game isn't exactly the, it isn't a linear starting point. By going to the left here, sort of a secret entrance, and using the Mantis Claw, we can climb. And just like that, we are now in the Howling Cliffs. And sort of here, if we go, this is actually the lamppost that you get to see at the start of whenever you start a game. This is where the knight jumps down. Oh yeah, and the other thing that we got off stream, I'll go ahead and show off the guy, is right here. So going into this room, you can meet a rather large bug by the name of Mato, Mailmaster Mato. My pupil, you have come to visit your old master. This is an honor I scarcely deserve. Please sit. You are always welcome to meditate here with me. And so, oh, that's nice. But yes, this is one of 3 nail masters that are in this game. And so, their primary purpose is for them to teach you new nail arts. By holding down the attack button, you can charge up, and once you're fully charged, you can do one of their specialized attacks. Mato's specialized attack is the Cyclone Slash. So it's not my favorite, probably of the 3. It's the one that I use the least. But it's nice if you're surrounded, by enemies as as I was the last time I streamed. So it probably would have come in handy there. But the general gimmick is that it's a bit of a longer range than your standard nail swing, but it does a little bit less damage and hits a few more times. So more of a crowd control tool than actually good damage, but still useful. The other nice thing is now we have Mark of Pride equipped. Our nail, the size of our nail, is super wide. Gives us a ton of extra breathing room to take out enemies from kind of a safe distance. But as we continue down here, you just want to sort of hug this right wall. Ooh. And now that we have the Lumifly lantern, it will automatically... Just sort of, the knight will automatically pull it out whenever it's necessary. Oh boy. So yeah, hitting that Vengefly into the spikes just caused us to lose the ability to bounce off of it a second time. Gotta be careful with that kind of stuff. Up. And immediately we're... Gotta take this a little bit slower. Whew. Getting surrounded. And just like that, yeah, no, Cyclone Slash immediately. Yeah, that guy had it coming. Whew. You know, I should probably use... just now remembering that I have a funny button that shoots a fireball. Oh boy, that dude just fell on top of me. WWE style, just body press. And Vengeflies, I mean, you know, there's... We've killed hundreds of them at this point. But they swarm up on you. Gotta be careful. Here we see a bunch of these lifeblood sort of vines and, you know, butterflies, it almost seems like. They always kind of had that resemblance, but now we actually get to see them truly flying. And here we find an interesting little bug that gives us our charm for the Howling Cliffs. Joni's Blessing. So this is very expensive, costing 4, but it transfigures vital fluids into blue lifeblood. The downside is that you cannot heal by focusing soul. So if there was ever a run, ever a challenge run where this charm was actually useful, it would be this one. Funnily enough, I didn't have this charm in mind when I was first coming up with the rules for the run. It just kind of happened to line up that way. Again, sort of the idea of the Nestlocke is, you know, in a Nuzlocke, you know, the challenge run for most Pokemon games. One of the standard rules that most people play by is that you can't use healing items in the middle of combat, and so that's where the no focusing rule really sort of got its origin from. But hey, I mean, you know, I always like challenge runs that sort of make other options, oh boy, a bit more viable. Okay, my greed has definitely... gotten the better of me here. I have not been giving these enemies the respect that they deserve, and so now we're a little stressed. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. The enemies here in Howling Cliffs aren't super dangerous. As long as we take it slow, we shouldn't have to run into anything between here and the King's Pass, and then King's Pass again. Basic enemies, nothing to worry about. But we're gonna really just do our best to get rid of the Vengeflies as quickly as possible, because they're the only really big threats. Okay. Here we have a funny little statue. Here lies Gorb, the Great Mind. We'll come back to that statue in a bit, but not quite yet. It hasn't become quite evident, quite self-evident yet. But the general like, over time, the game hasn't quite laid out what the actual end goal for us is. But that will become a little bit more self-apparent with time. Although we could rush that now, because we have the Lumafly Lantern. We can sort of progress the quote-unquote main plot. But that's not entirely necessary. And there are some downsides progressing the main plot too quickly. And I'd rather just sort of take things at a bit of a slower pace, as evidenced by every time that I take things super fast, I almost end the run. Alright. Home free. And now we can equip this new charm that we got. Unfortunately, we're going to have to drop both Mark of Pride and Shaman Stone in order to equip it. But as soon as we get our hands on another charm notch, we'll be able to push past the limitation. So for right now, we'll just go Joni's Blessing and Thorns of Agony. But as you can see, we get an additional 3 masks. The downside is that all of our health becomes lifeblood and we can't heal anymore. But, like I've said before, who needs healing if you're never going to use it? Alright, here we are. Get ourselves the Sands Charm, which I know... I know it's not intentional. It's just like blue, white, like, you know, the masks, you know, resemble, you know, the empty eye sockets of a skull. But also, like, you could have shown that to, like, one other person and have them go, yeah, that looks like Sands, dude. I don't know, and maybe they did. Maybe they were well aware that this was the Sands charm, and they just decided to not do anything about it. And honestly, I think that's probably, there's decent evidence for that, considering that there is another charm that's very similar to it called Sprint Master that is red and white. So honestly, I think it might just be a straight up reference, like intentional. But yeah, we rescued Mila. We aren't really doing it for the mask piece that she gives us. Though, you know, that is certainly a big reason why most people will try and rescue her. Instead, we're doing it for the sake of completion. She kind of has, I suppose, you could call it a quest. It's more like a series of events that, you know, you need to rescue her in order for her to, for things to happen. But no need to get ahead of ourselves. Now that we've got the Sprint Master, we'll at least try to head up via the path to City of Tears. And if it's locked and we can't get in, then oh well, we'll just backtrack all the way back to Queen Station. Yeah, stuck like Chuck. So... Alrighty, back in the City of Tears. Yeah, I'm gonna have to adjust a little bit because playing so much with the Shaman Stone, my counting for how much health these guys have is a little off. So now it takes 2 hits and alongside a Vengeful Spirit to take out these guys. But once when we get another charm notch, which there's not one super immediately available. We would have to start really scringing and scrounging for all of the charms in order to pick up another one from Salubra. But once when we get just one more charm notch, we'll be able to equip both Joni's Blessing and Brain and Shaman Stone. Here we have this guy, the loser that I hate and I despise. His stupid projectiles. God, those guys are the worst. Alright, come... Ah, nuts. Stay back, you animal. Ugh, what a turd. Brother, I swear. This dude's just baiting me. Oh my goodness. Oh, well, I didn't read this before, so go ahead and... Record Abba. The mind still limits us so. How to break past its constraints, to attain a pure focus. Is it even possible? So yes, the Soul Sanctum is kind of a laboratory of sorts for, well, I'll give you 3 guesses. But it seems that it didn't really go terribly well, considering that all these guys are still infected anyway. So their attempts to, you know, improve the strength of their minds didn't really amount to much in the long run. And it's kind of interesting, like, the general motif is that orange is infection. And so the fact that these guys, who are kind of like wizards, essentially, are shooting off orange projectiles almost seems to indicate that, like, whereas most bugs just generally succumbed to the infection through just dreams or other such stuff, perhaps... Hello! Hey, Gabriel, what's going on? But yeah, like, as I was saying, I think it might be a neat idea that, like, these guys sort of got tempted by the allure of the infection. Sort of, as we've seen, the infection does physiologically change some bugs to make them bigger and meaner and more aggressive. And we'll definitely see a lot more of that as we continue on through the game. Ah, those little turds. Yeah. I mean, you don't gotta tell me twice about yapping. Currently just doing my best. You gotta sort of take everything one little step at a time. So even if you're not making a ton of progress, as long as you open up a lever to make the repeat trek a little bit easier, then that's still progress made. You know, the moment-to-moment for the challenge isn't that much different than a normal playthrough. It's really just kind of knowing what your limits are and when you need to bail. So yeah, a Nestlocke, it's the custom set of rules that I'm running. I'll go ahead and flash them up on stream real fast. Essentially, I can't focus. I can't heal by focusing. I can't bench warp if I don't have full health. And then I can only use charms that I collect first from a given area. So, you know, kind of like a Nuzlocke in Pokemon, where you can only get one Pokemon per route. I can only use the charms that I find first in an area. Yeah. This is what I was talking about yesterday. So, right now, I went out of my way to go to Howling Cliffs to pick up Joni's Blessing early, and then I got Thorns of Agony first from Green Path, then Mark of Pride first from Fungal Wastes, and then Shaman Stone from Forgotten Crossroads. So those are the 4 charms that I can currently use. Everything else, I'm collecting them for the sake of getting more charm notches. Oh boy, that's not a... I was immediately just running into that door thinking it was open. Oh boy. So close. One more hit. There we go. Man, those guys are just the worst. I'd honestly say... Honestly, like, if it wasn't for the fact that Primal Aspids gets, like, spammed in Kingdom's Edge, I would argue that those are one of the most annoying enemies in the game, just bar none. There's not really much of a competition. Because every other enemy is either, you know, you only fight them one at a time, or they are easier to take out. But those dudes have a surprising amount of health, teleport all over the place, and those projectiles, they always get you. Dang, okay. I'm not doing super hot. And unfortunately, there's not really another shortcut that I can take. I think I'm just gonna have to bail and take another crack at this. Yeah. Come on. Oh boy. Okay. Now you stand and fight, I swear. Okay. Oh, there we go, that's a switch. If I can hit that switch, then we'll be cooking. Okay. Not time to be a hero. We are out of here. Whew. I've already lost one run to Soul Sanctum. I really don't want to lose multiple. Because if that's the case, then I'm probably going to have to rethink my approach to charms. Oh, no, this is the wrong place. Because, like, I've bought the Lifeblood Core from Salubra, but because that wasn't the first thing that I bought, then I can't use it. Lifeblood Core is honestly pretty good. It's two charm notches, and you get 2 extra temp HP. And considering that I can't heal, that's basically just 2 extra free HP. So, if I was able to equip this alongside Lifeblood Core, I'd have an extra 2 health on top of the, what is that, 7 I already have? So I'd be able to get a whole lot farther. Alright. We're pretty close to the boss. If we can just rush the door, then we'll basically be right at his at his front porch. Okay. Okay, little goober. Ah, oh my goodness. I should have just dived the other way. That's the thing, like, They have surprisingly aggressive tracking, those projectiles. Oh my goodness. Ugh. Not great. You know what? I'm not gonna do this. I hate playing this slowly, just because, like, it's real Sisyphus hours right now. Of going back to get the bench and going back in, and then by the time I get back here, the guy respawns because it's been, like, multiple screens. But I need to have a clean run up to the boss, because I'm not worried about the boss killing me. I'm worried about the trek back from the boss killing me. Because there's a ton of enemies. And if you're not prepared, then they can just kind of just swarm you super fast. That's how I died last time. So I need to have at least 6 masks going into the fight, so I can afford to lose 2 or 3 and still have a cushion. Because the unfortunate truth is that I don't have the best nerves. And whenever I get down to 1 health, I start kind of freaking out a little bit. Oh boy. Just gonna ignore you. That's the other thing about these guys, is that you can't run away from them. They're both incredibly cowardly and also super persistent. Okay, but we made it. 6 masks, that's plenty. Just gotta be a little... I've been playing, let's see, Hollow Knight Voidheart Edition released for the Xbox in late 2018. So 7 years. In terms of the number of playthroughs I've done, probably close to 8, maybe? Yeah. So I've been playing this game for a while. It's, you know, I don't play it all the time. I usually will do a run through and then not play it for, like, you know, 8 months to a year. But whenever I get in the mood, or whenever Silksong news kind of ramps up a little bit, the siren call returns. Oh, and some lovely double hits there. Yeah, I mean, I actually have, generally, with most games, I don't tend to replay them. However, if a game is really good in my eyes, it sort of reaches a tier where I will always come back to play it. So that's, to me, it's like, those games are like the Sly Cooper franchise, which I grew up with, BioShock, Hollow Knight, Pizza Tower. I've recently been replaying through Octopath Traveler 2, which has been a ton of fun. That game is super great to do while you're, like, doing something else. Like, I've been on an exercise bike while I've been playing through Octopath 2, because it keeps my hands free, so I can still, you know, play. But yeah, no, that game is a ton of fun. This one, I can't, like, I've really got to be focused. Sometimes I'll like, start to put on a podcast, but then whenever anything gets too tense, I'll immediately just turn it off. So this is probably one of the few games that I actually kind of give my full attention to. Oh, there we go. Oh, what a clean fight. No damage. Dance on the man. Dance on the man. Oh, probably go ahead and turn off the rules. Just a lot of clutter on the stream. There we go. Well, there are some, like, don't get me wrong, you know, some parts of the game I can definitely just sort of turn my brain off. Like, when you're doing cleanup, like you've already, you know, beaten most of the bosses and you're just trying to get extra collectibles, then, you know, this game's honestly pretty relaxing. Because, you know, you're playing through the game, like, the soul mechanic of being able to heal just by hitting enemies just means that even if you make mistakes, you play a little bit more conservatively, you heal back up, and then you're fine. But no, whenever a boss fight comes, or a particularly dangerous area, then, you know, you just gotta turn stuff off and lock in a little bit. I mean, and honestly, there are some challenges that you can undertake where you honestly have no choice but to try and listen to something else just for the sake of patience. Like, I know you aren't there yet, Gabriel, but if or when you decide to take on the Pantheon DLC, or Godmaster, whatever it's called, that, if you actually really, you know, commit yourself to going through all of that, then, you know, you need to have something else on just to keep yourself from losing your mind. And like, I did a no-hit run, like, yeah, I didn't do no-hit run of the game. There's a challenge that you can do in the DLC where you can take on all the bosses, and if you get hit by them, you instantly die. And so you get a little medal next to each boss that you defeat in that way. And so I got all gold medals, baby. And that... I'm not gonna mince words, that sucked. If I didn't have a podcast or something to listen to while doing that, nuh-uh, you can't catch me with that. Alright. I feel like I know that there's a funny thing that we can pick up. Actually, this is a good time for me to check something. Actually, this is a good time for me to leave. Okay. Let me... Okay, yeah. As far as I'm aware, the only thing to get... Yeah, Metal Gear Rising, Devil May Cry. Yeah, I need to get around to, honestly, both of those. I have Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. I got partway into 2 and then just put it down because I got stuck at a certain part. But no, Rising Revengeance, and, like, honestly, there's a lot of those kind of hack and slash games that I know are good, and I know that I'd probably enjoy them, but long list of backlog. And sometimes you just, you know, sometimes you play games for the sake of winding down rather than trying something brand new. Wait a second, what is... I don't remember what this is. What is this lead? Oh! That's neat. Yeah, no, believe me, there's tons of... I always enjoy a good power fantasy game. To me, the BioShock series does a great job of sort of doing that power fantasy. Yeah, no, you always gotta watch out for those breakable walls, man. I forget most of them, but every now and again, my monkey brain will do the spot the difference between the walls. But yeah, BioShock is a very fun franchise. It has, like, you know, when you first at the beginning of the game, it's a little bit more like survival horror, and I can't quite say it's power fantasy. But by the time you get to the end and you're drowning in ammunition and money and upgrades, you just burn through everything, and it's an absolute blast. Let's see. Okay, so now that I've got the ground pound, I think... Okay, yeah, I think, okay, we're gonna go ahead and... Actually, we're gonna backtrack to where I was. Yeah, no, BioShock 1, I mean, all the BioShock games have really, really cool art and a really cool aesthetic. I would recommend... I'd recommend all of them. I mean, BioShock 1 has the best atmosphere. BioShock 2 has, in my opinion, the best mechanics, and also probably some of the best character development. And then BioShock Infinite has sort of more fast-paced gameplay, if you're more familiar with kind of like, you know, like like you hold shift to sprint shooters where you're jumping around and, you know, it's a bit more fast-paced, a little bit less, Yeah, so the thing about Infinite is it's a very pretty game. It's a very well-acted game. All of the voice actors are phenomenal. And when you play through it the first time, I think most people have really, really good opinions about it their first time playing through it. And then the more you play through it, the more, the more you start to realize all of the cracks and the flaws. And so it ends up being a very muddy game, because it tries to do a lot, and it kind of got stuck in development hell, so there's a lot of, like, ideas that were half-baked and were kind of implemented barely enough to kind of make sense. But once when you start to, like, actually unpack it a little bit, it sort of falls apart. And then the DLC has even more issues in terms of story. So, but here's the funny thing. I've played BioShock Infinite more than any other BioShock game. I think I have legitimately played through BioShock Infinite like a dozen times. So it's, at the end of the day, it's still a great game. I would still recommend it to people. But it always comes with that caveat of, like, it is trying to accomplish a lot, and it succeeds maybe 70% of the time. So if you can put up with a game that kind of has those obvious flaws, then I think you can still enjoy it. But definitely people will generally say that BioShock 1 and 2 are of higher quality just because their scope is a bit more achievable. Yeah. Borderlands, also fun franchise. I've only played through 2, as far as I can remember. Apparently, a friend of mine was saying the last time I streamed that it's free, but also the current version that they're offering for free wants root access to your PC, which sounds incredibly suspicious. I know that it's probably just for, like, anti-cheat whatevers. Yeah, no, that's crazy. Like, literally you're giving... literally you're giving a game the same access that you, the user, has. This is just what I've heard. I don't know if it's, you know, entirely true, but, like, wacky stuff, man. Absolutely wacky stuff. All right. But yeah, yeah, no, there's definitely. I feel like anytime you get a few games deep, it really turns into, okay, did the devs have a vision for what a trilogy would actually look like, or did they just make one good game, make a sequel, and then feel obligated to make another one? Because to me, a good third game has to feel like it has something meaningful to say, compared to just like, oh hey, do you like more content? We have more content. Because I think it's acceptable to have the second game be just sort of more of the first. You know, like, it's in the same way that, like, Super Mario Galaxy 2 is just Super Mario Galaxy more. Like, there's no real advancement in ideas or tone or, like, you know, development. It's just more of the game that you wanted to play. But by the time you hit, like, the third entry... I'm a little confused by the question. There's not a third game, no. There's Super Mario Galaxy and Galaxy 2. And originally, when the developers were making Super Mario Galaxy 2... Yeah, no, 2 is its own game. But when they were first making it, it was originally planned to be DLC for Super Mario Galaxy 1, and they were going to call it Super Mario Galaxy More. And then they realized, oh wait, it's 2008, no one buys DLC yet. And so they decided to just make a full retail game. But, like, functionally, well, like, let's be honest here. Does Super Mario Galaxy 2 really do anything that Super Mario Galaxy 1 didn't do? Like, okay, they added Yoshi. Anything else? Like, it's more of the same, like, ideas and gimmicks that the first game had. Which is good, because Super Mario Galaxy was a great game. But, yeah, like, you know, Bioshock Infinite is an attempt, like, you know, from what I've heard, Borderlands 3 didn't really take the story in a terribly interesting direction. And so I always feel like the third game needs to either do a hard pivot and, like, try something very new, or develop on the original ideas in a way that makes it feel natural. Like, to me, an example of a good game that sort of rounds out the trilogy nicely would be, like, the Sly Cooper trilogy. Because the third game, while it has a lot of sort of new gameplay gimmicks, and is kind of on a generally tighter timeline than the first two, it develops the characters really naturally, and sort of takes where they were and you know, gives them a nice little end to their arcs. I mean, Sly Cooper, it's an old PS2 platformer. So, I mean, it was considered, like, the big three of Sony platformers during the PS2 era was Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, and Ratchet and Clank. And so, Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank were trying to appeal to sort of an older audience by, you know, pivoting towards guns and, you know, that violence and, you know, swear words and that kind of stuff. And those all did, both of those did well. But Sly Cooper was kind of committed to just sort of pure platforming kind of, you know, vibes. And the games are just so solid. Like, they're written super well. Platforming's, like, clean and simple. I mean, it's really just the franchise that I grew up on. And so I have a hard time really sort of praising it, because in my mind it just is good. There's still kind of that, like, childlike incapability of giving it a better summary. If I wanted to be facetious, I could probably summarize Sly Cooper as the game where you jump and press the circle button. Because all of the game's sort of parkour it's automated to, you know, it is a children's game after all, and so rather than like the Assassin's Creed approach of having everything be incredibly contextual, where you have to like run up to a wall and then if the game decides correctly, you'll run up it. Instead, you just jump and press the circle button, and then you whoop. Yeah. I mean, I definitely have a decent number of friends who got into video games a bit later. But no, I grew up with this stuff. It was started with the PS2, and then I got the Wii and played the crap out of Super Smash Bros. Brawl and Galaxy, and yeah, surprisingly enough, like Kirby's Epic Yarn, like when I first got it, I wasn't super sold on it because it just looked a little too kiddie for me, even though I was like probably 9 when it came out, maybe like 8. But then as I got older and I kind of got over the game doesn't need to like have guns and be super serious to be enjoyable. Kirby's Epic Yarn is a really fun game. Like, it's not difficult at all, but it's just super solid. The movement is like really smooth. It has like, to me, one of the biggest downsides of the Kirby franchise is the fact that Kirby is so light and floaty. It feels like he doesn't, oftentimes in a lot of his games, it doesn't feel like he has a lot of weight to his jumps or his movement. But Kirby's Epic Yarn, because it doesn't have the normal float mechanic, dude has like really solid movement. It's a lot of fun to run around in Kirby's Epic Yarn. It's the boy. Quite a view, no? I'm not surprised you survived the trek through these shimmering caverns. There's an air of strength about you. I suspect it would be quite intimidating, if not for your small stature. The goat. Did it sadden you to see those miners below, still laboring at their endless task? Even overcome, strong purpose has been imprinted upon their husks. The crystal ore is said to contain a sort of energy, not as powerful as the soul of city dwellers, harnessed but far less lethal. Strange to know such ancient facts. I wonder from where my knowledge comes. Honestly, it's super fun. The entire cast of Hollow Knight is just so, like, well-rounded. Even though, like... I feel like one of the things that, like, a lot of Dark Souls characters sometimes fall into is that they're responding... like, a lot of Dark Souls characters, to contrast, are responding often very appropriately to the setting that they're in, which is absolutely, you know, miserable. But that does tend to result in a lot of sameness amongst the characters, especially, you know, now that the Dark Souls... I don't know if there is Zote hate, to be perfectly honest, but... Hold on, let me finish up my thought first, and I'll get to Zote. But, like... With Dark Souls characters, oftentimes they end up sort of feeling like they're all a little samey, but in Hollow Knight, everyone has a very unique perspective on how dour the situation is. And part of it comes down to most of these characters don't actually have a ton of knowledge of what Hallownest was beforehand. So it's interesting to kind of have these characters who just kind of see Hallownest as just, like, this failed kingdom, and it's like, that's just kind of how life is now, and there's not really a... And they, you know, the way that they approach life is how they approach everything. But in terms of Zote hate, I'm not sure if people really hate him. I think it's it's obviously a meme for people to think poor of him. There are some... there are some interactions where you might, like, not like him as much. But honestly, no, dude's the best. I don't... I think any hate that might happen for Zote is either ironic or just coming from an attempt to, like, if you try to take Zote seriously as a character, then yeah, he's annoying. But he's obviously written to be such a foil. Exactly. I mean, he's just a goofy guy. Like, he takes himself hyper seriously, and he's pathetic. I mean, there's not much. I mean, well, you know, he he's pathetic in the real world. Let's keep it like that. There are some optional things where do we go for it? Am I confident to take this on with 2 health? Because he's sitting on a bench. Honestly, there's risk with either direction, and I'm more confident in my boss knowledge than I am with my navigation knowledge. So let's just go ahead and take this guy on. Oh boy, that was immediately a mistake. Oh boy. You're kidding me. Oh my goodness. Oh, that sucks. Yeah, that was greed. That... my goodness. Well... Hold on, let me... Gotta update the counter. Yeah, that was not, like, as soon as because the lasers drop down from the ceiling are purely random, and so that was just really really poor luck about how the lasers were just so on top of me, and I panicked and I didn't move. That's kind of the big problem is I'm telling myself constantly, like, you know, what's there to worry about? You're, like, you've fought in these bosses all the time, dozens of times. They're easy, they're chumps. And, like, they are. But one, I'm used to dealing with them with all upgrades. And so, like, even if I take a little bit of damage here and there, you know, no biggie. Or I can just burn through them so quickly because I have, you know, the nail upgrades to do a ton of damage. So there's a disconnect of how dangerous these guys actually are, and then there's the fact that my nerves just completely get the better of me. That was miserable. But we press on. I think we're going to... Yeah... Yeah, we're going to adjust, which does stink, because my hope, well, I'm still very torn, because per my rules, I can either get the Shaman Stone or the Lifeblood Core. The Shaman Stone is going to help me in the later game. But the Lifeblood Core is going to get me to the later game. So, there's not really a good answer. I think I probably just need to focus on making as much immediate progress. Yeah. I ultimately value. I want to take. I would want this run to get as deep as possible, and in order to take on some of the later fights, because I'm not going to be upgrading my nail, nor am I going to be picking up fragile strength. My nail is going to be super weak. I need to have to lean on my spell skills in order to make up the difference. So the logical thing is that I need to stick with Shaman Stone. The part of my nerves are telling me that I'm gonna keep choking, and that having a bit more insurance will keep me calmer for longer and allow me to play better. Yeah, and I think that's what I'm still leaning towards. It might be after if I keep just failing at around the, well, and that's sort of the problem is like I'm still making forward progress with every run. I'm getting deeper with every run, so I don't think it's quite appropriate to say that my strategy is incorrect. It's really just more execution. And there also is just a matter of rust. Like I haven't played through this game start to finish in a year or so, and there's just so much map that like because so much of this challenge is knowing where benches are and knowing what the danger is between where you are currently and where the next bench is. Because, like, in that instance, I took on a boss at 2 health, which generally isn't a smart thing to do, but I did it because I assumed the risk of trying to find another bench in an area that I wasn't quite familiar with yet was going to be greater than the risk of a boss that I've fought, like, dozens of times. So part of it is just sheer familiarity. Once when I get reacquainted with the map in more earnestness, I'll be able to take things on with a bit more confidence. Like, my first playthrough, I spent probably an hour wandering around in Forgotten Crossroads before deciding to take on False Knight. Even though, like, False Knight isn't a hard boss, I still had a couple of close calls just wandering around, running low on health. But now, you know, four attempts in, Forgotten Crossroads is, you know, I remember it. Everything's kosher. Everything's good. Ah. Oh, that was close. That was some greed right there. Oh boy. Nothing much. Just fought the guy to get the grub. dude does two masks of damage with his overhead swing, so I was greeting a little too hard, because again, Ooh, that was... As you can tell, I'm running a little impatient. Because I want to get back to where I was as soon as possible, but now, with every death that I get further in, that's some more progress that I'm having to make up, so... It's all good. The margins are acceptable. We can afford a little bit more risk for Rush. Calm down! Calm down! I said calm down! Good old Charlie. It was a misinput! It was a misinput! While we're here, I can go ahead and show off a cool thing that's not super well known, at least not if you're in the speedrun community. But False Knight, you know, you hit him, you do whatever, you do the first damage phase. But as he starts to do his little temper tantrum for the first time, you'll notice that this kind of felt like sort of cracked. And you can just straight up leave. So. Yeah. Now, it's not a good idea to leave. Just because, like, you still need, like, well, you don't need. The fastest way to get into the City of Tears is with the City Crest. So it makes logical sense for you to just go ahead and take on what is a very easy boss. But I might as well just sort of show this off. Trying to think, what are the other entrances to City of Tears? Yeah, you really just kind of have to go through Ancestral Mound. Yeah, when you say siblings, are you referring to the False Knights, little grub buddies, or who are we talking about here? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's... Yeah, the False Knights companions who were having a funeral service for... So yeah, after you beat False Knight, you can find a secret room where his buddies are holding a funeral service for him, and then you can not only kill them, but then invade the, you know, dying dream of the dude you just killed to take on a harder version of the False Knight fight and kill him again, which is honestly so incredibly disrespectful. Like, at the end of the day, he's a mindless bug. Like, he's a mindless infected, so it's, you know... you know, he's not that big of a deal. But on some level, you gotta you gotta realize that the knight is holds no prisoners. I mean, to me, if we're talking about like true crimes against humanity, the fact that the mantises, like, they are a territorial group that explicitly do not go out of their way to, like, they don't go beyond their village, but they're like the only potentially hostile NPCs that aren't infected in this game. Or, basically. So, the fact that you just slaughter them and their kids, because also, fun fact, yeah. Yeah, the little white grubs aren't terribly intelligent. But, like, well, yeah, so fun fact, I'm not sure if you read it in the Hunter's Journal yet or not, but the flying versions of the mantises, those are kids. I mean, you know, it's not a great look, and it's probably at its worst with the mantises because those kids are not infected, so they're not just mindless zombies, but like, huh? Allow? Okay. Might as well. Go burn. Interesting. I didn't know the auto mod was that. I mean, you know, props to the auto mod for, I suppose, being thorough, but like, burn isn't even that particularly violent of a term. It's used in a lot of very non-violent contexts. Those maybe it took the sum of your message in its whole rather than the specific phrase. But I mean, yeah, it's not terribly surprising that we technically, quote-unquote, kill kids, considering that there's, like, enemies that shoot out their children as projectiles. Like, those are kids. They're not intelligent, I'm pretty sure. I mean, yeah, well, that's the parents' fault. I suppose. But, like, most of the enemies aren't... Like, I guess they're generally hostile in the sense that they don't like you. It's self-defense. I mean, yeah, I suppose. But have you also considered that we're not from this place? We came from outside of this kingdom. We are foreign invaders. And we're declaring self-defense as we dive deeper into this ruined kingdom to pillage it of its natural resources. Through their what parent does that? Very scared parents, obviously, you monster. Also, there's a fun little secret that I've shown off before, but if we wait and do a little bug dance. It's a little guy! It's a little fella. Yep. Just a harmless little fella. Don't ask the community what he's done in his past. You don't need to know. I can't. I wish I mean, I could if I would. He's a known arsonist. Actually, no, I did, while we're talking about this, I did think of something that you do that is definitely much worse, than taking on the mantises. And, you know, the mantises are bad, but, like, they're just generally territorial, and as soon as you take on their leaders and beat them, they immediately chill out. So, like, in my book, they're not the worst thing that you do. There is one thing that you can do that is really bad, but, you really have, like, and honestly the worst part about it is, like, unless you are crazy lucky, you have to go out of your way to do it. It's kind of like a morality test of, do you want to read... how badly do you want to read all the lore in the game? Because there's one thing that you have to do that's just unacceptable. It's vile. Oh boy. Why did I turn around there? Oh boy. Not even worried for a second. Not worried for a second. No, but that wasn't what I was referring to. There's a... I'll just go ahead and say it. There's a guy that you can kill called Menderbug. And he's like one of the only killable NPCs that is perfectly harmless and has done nothing wrong. Like, at least, like, even the mantises are just... If I manage to get back to, if I get Desolate Dive back this stream, I'll make a point to kill Menderbug. Because it seems that you're not a terribly big fan of him.
Bapanada.
Hold on, I want to see if it works. Okay, so I can actually show this off right now. So notice this sign. I break it, and then when I fall back down, it's repaired. But it, you know, it's kind of sort of strapped together, sort of hanging on by a thread. Menderbug does that. Yup. Well, not everything. Just signs. He really loves signs. Honestly, yeah, that's kind of the vibe. All right, back in Green Path for the 4th time. Let's go. It is very pretty, and honestly, this Green Path has one of my favorite ambiance themes in the game. Like, I'd probably go City of Tears, Green Path, and then either Kingdom's Edge or Forgotten Crossroads. But like, I mean, all of the background music is super nice. You know, forget the gameplay, forget, like, you know, the prospect of more Hollow Knight to play. One of the things I'm super excited about for Silksong is just more Christopher Larkin music, because dude is a boss composer. Yo! It's Hollow Knight Silksong! It's Silksong! Hornet, when's the game coming out? Oh, let's go! I made the skip! I did the skip! Hell yeah! Oh my gosh, I've been trying to do that skip for 4 runs now, and I finally managed to pull it off. Okay, my headphones are continually beeping at me about low battery. I might need to take a break soon to charge them. Yeah, no, I last night when you were talking about, yeah, Poe going off of the miner's pickaxe to get to the higher area before getting double jump, I knew exactly what you guys were talking about, and I'm not super big on speedrun strats because, again, generally I'm trying to build up as much resource as possible, because this isn't a speedrun challenge, this is a try not to die challenge, but also I am 4 runs in and I keep flubbing stuff up, so I kind of want to just get a move on and get back to where I was. Because when I get some more upgrades, and just some straight up more movement upgrades, I'm going to feel a bit more confident about my ability to maneuver around stuff. Because not having dash sucks, not having Mantis Claw sucks, not having double jump is pretty rough. Zote the goat. Fun fact, that is actually considered a boss. It doesn't get a proper title screen like everyone else does, but it is a boss because it shows up in the boss rush. Let me... hold on. Okay. Let me see if I can get this to work. Alright, as long as I don't tug on this power cord, I should be able to keep playing. And still get a charge, because I'm, like... it's not like every 2 minutes my headphones are doing this high-pitched beep, and it's starting to get annoying. Alright. Are these guys necessary to take on? Absolutely not. Am I incredibly poor? You bet your ass. You know what these guys have? Rent money. That simple key ain't gonna buy itself, you know. Oh yeah, big time. They're not too bad. Pogoing off of them is really the main strat. But they do like to backdash and then immediately do the projectile. So, if they're gonna use their projectiles, I get to use mine. And we're gonna... I'm still at full health, so let's go ahead and take on Hornet, and then we'll move down and get the Stag Station. Damn, Silk Song looks a lot like base Hollow Knight. I mean, they... Well, one, all the bugs in this game generally have pretty similar designs. But yeah, there is a particular reason for why Hornet and the Knight look so similar. If you didn't already know. Oh, I'm trying to think where you get that information. It's explicitly mentioned in Queen's Garden, which I don't think you've been to quite yet. And then there might be some hints in after you get Shade Cloak and you talk to Hornet a bit immediately after that. And then maybe some other details, but minor spoilers. Hornet is your half-sister. Oh, it's absolutely siblings. Half-siblings. They share a father. Technically. You think blood relation is going to stop R34? You fool. Only, honestly, there's a very particular joke that I could make about BioShock Infinite, but that involves some very heavy spoilers, and I would actually like you to eventually one day play that game unspoiled, so, Alright. I think it doesn't... Yeah. There's not really anything of note to go down here for, so I might as well just go back up. Because I also need to throw down that checkpoint. I think yeah, no, I skipped the map. So Cornfor might be gone at this point. I might have to backtrack to get the green path map, which, oh well, the price of doing a 6 skip. It's not like I'm really Oh yeah, I played through Baldur's Gate 3 all the way. Took me 150 plus hours, but I did beat it. I did not know that. Hold on one moment. Alrighty. But yeah, Dark... I need to... whenever I decide to play through Baldur's Gate 3 again, I'll definitely do the Dark Urge playthrough, because I just did the normal one. But yeah, seems fun. Though, like, my problem with any RPG that is as long as Baldur's Gate 3, because, again, I'm the type of player who likes to... Not necessarily a completionist, but just likes to thoroughly go through as much as I want before finally, like, moving on. That's a big commitment, man. Like, that's just a lot of game to go through. And unlike, you know, something like Octopath Traveler, where I can play it on my Switch, that game is a little too graphically intensive for me to play on anything other than my PC. And so whenever I sit down to play something on the PC, I'm sitting down to play a game. You know, it's like like last year, I played through and beat Persona 5 for the first time. And that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. But that was also a 150-hour RPG. And as soon as I beat it, it was like, there was the prompt of like, hey, do you want to start a new game plus? And I was like, bro, I could never play this game again and I'd be fine. But now I got plenty of friends who've done like 2, 3, 4, 5 playthroughs of Baldur's Gate. And they seem to really enjoy it. Even though I then ask them, so how do you feel about playing D&D? And they're like, ew, gross. It's like, my brother in Christ, you're playing the same game. More or less. I mean, you know, it's... There's a difference, but like... Nice! Yeah, no, D&D got me through a lot of college. I was saying in the previous stream, like, that was when the coronavirus hit. I just binge watched Critical Role, and anytime they used a mechanic I wasn't aware of, I looked it up online, and that's how I learned how to play. And so by the time I finally decided to find a D&D group to play with, I was already more of a rules lawyer than the current group's rules lawyer, which not necessarily a good thing, but that is just a fact of how I ended up playing. Yeah, D&D's a ton of fun. I'd recommend... I mean, I think any TTRPG that has some, like, well fleshed out combat mechanics. Like, it doesn't need to be D&D. I really have loved playing Lancer the couple times that I've gotten the opportunity to play it. And one of these days I'm going to sit down and learn Pathfinder so I can join a campaign to, you know, see what that all's about. Interesting, yeah, so 3.5, that's another system that I haven't played, but I would be interested to experiment with at least one day. Now, I've almost exclusively stuck to 5e. Oh yeah, I saw advertisements for that game on Roll20, and nah, a little too niche for me. Prefer more general rule sets, you know? Not the target audience, unfortunately. We'll keep it like that. Oh, cool. Ah, yeah, corn fur is gone. But yeah, no, I think TTRPGs, it's a really cool space for people to, like... To me, the benefit of TTRPGs compared to, like, just video game RPGs or any other kind of game is being able to have the mechanics and the rules of the game be sort of both be propped up by and also help justify narrative elements. And so it's like when you have those two elements coinciding and working together, that's when the game becomes really special, in my opinion. You know, it's like one thing to just like, oh, you're playing an RPG and you're a fighter guy and you're like, you know, cool or whatever. But it's another thing when you have this opportunity in D&D to be like, oh, I'm a fighter, but, you know, I'm fighting this dude that I've sworn vengeance against, and so the DM is giving me like a, you know, a plus, you know, an additional bonus to attack, but I have disadvantage to hit anyone other than this character because I'm so dead set on killing him, you know? Like, TTRPGs, I think, generally lend them, because there is a, you know, the referee and the arbiter of the rules is someone that can be bargained with and someone who is inclined to keep things entertaining and engaging. That lends towards some really cool interactions where you can have the sort of predetermined rules and mechanics sort of prop up what's going on in the story. Yeah, there definitely are some rules light systems that are much more like, hey, as long as I can kind of angle it that my character could conceivably do this, then, well, you know, it can happen. I generally prefer something with a little bit more boundaries. It doesn't need to be super crunchy, but I can appreciate some good, like, consistent mechanics that you can kind of build off of. Because, like, if I'm going to spend... Because, you know, here, my thing is, like, if I'm spending, you know, 3 to 4 hours every week or every other week for the, you know, conceivable future, you know, years, like, potentially years down the road, if I'm dedicating that much time into playing this one character, you're gonna bet your sweet patootie that I'm gonna play them as optimally as possible, and I'm gonna look at every single mechanic that's available to them and figure out which one does the most, you know, damage, healing, whatever, like, support, you know, whatever. So, rather than just, you know, rules light systems, it's definitely more of, like, a matter of conversation with the DM and what the DM thinks is appropriate. And I'm not saying that those systems can't do some really cool stuff for, like, contests and conflict. But as someone who is generally really argumentative, and is kind of, you know, I've got that rules lawyer streak in me, those games aren't, you know, those games can sometimes break down if the player and the DM sort of reach an impasse. And it's like, well, you know, do you let the person who's making a decent argument do what they want at the cost of, you know, taking some narrative wind out of the sails? Or do you put your foot down and have this person's fun be diminished because they presented a good idea and you said no? You know? Like, I would much rather prefer the you can't do that because you only have an action and a bonus action. Like, there is some cold objectivity to the latter that keeps things neutral. It makes you feel. It makes the DM feel more like a referee than a than God in terms of like how the game breaks down. And I think that can be important if your players are more competitive. Okay, yeah, no, I'm a little off track, but it's all good. It's all good. Really, not really off track, just more like going around my elbow to get my thumb here. Since stuff's homebrew, a lot of unique stuff. I played. Okay. Yeah, no, and again, like that's, you know, sounds like you guys have a lot of fun with that. And certainly, like, I would be willing to, if someone offered, like, hey, do you want to join this, you know, campaign that's sort of, you know, low rule, like, you know, soft rules, minimal combat kind of homebrew experience, as long as I have notice about what the vibe is, what the boundaries are for how people are generally expected to play, I can be flexible. But in terms of what I actually want to seek out, I prefer some objectivity. Yeah, no, that sounds super cool. Like, I mean, like criminal, you know, love me some superheroes. Most of my D&D characters end up with some with some superhero in their DNA. Whether it be, you know, tragic backstory or goofy quirks, or just the fact that they, you know, get a power up whenever they get too mad, that kind of thing. Ooh, do I have enough money? 550, 670. Yeah, I got enough. Yeah, I mean, precisely. Like, you know, and I imagine poison ivy powers are they're nice and vague and sort of lend for some cool things and cool interactions. But they still have like obvious limits that the DM can kind of work around. Of like, hey, if you get locked in a, you know, a metal box, you're not going to be able to, you know, summon a bunch of vines to spread out of the ground, because it's like, where are they going to grow? So, yeah, I can definitely see the give and take with that kind of system. And then, of course, you know, everyone loves some good old angst. Like, don't get me wrong, I am glad we're no longer in the early 2000s where everything's dark and moody all the time. And I'm especially glad that we're finally starting to move away from the endless irony and sarcasm of the 2010s and starting to move back towards something approaching some sincerity. That all being said, I do love some melodrama when it's sort of rationed out, you know? Yeah, I mean, you know, it's all about sort of like power levels. It's like, oh, if you can grow plants wherever, and you're not really limited by environment, then, you know, the guy who shoots lasers out of his eyes, like, bro, those got to be some pretty powerful lasers, you know? I am missing. Yeah, that's where it is. I was like, I keep I know that there is a side tangent that goes up, and there's some grubs there that I want to grab. Here it is. Nah, dog. Everyone, like, after you make your first character, which is just, like, insert whatever media you like, most people's second character is basically just, I'm going to play this person, and this is how they act. And then the more you play them, the more you slowly realize, oh, this person acts like all of my worst qualities. I wonder why that is. Like, I had, like, one of my favorite characters that I played was a rogue doctor. So it was like 5e, so the thief rogue subclass isn't very good, but they have the ability to use items as a bonus action. And so I was able to take a healer feat that allowed me to do a surprising amount of healing, you know, as a pretty nimble and kind of sly, crafty character. And it was a lot of fun to play someone who had this kind of chip on his shoulder, because it's like, he's a rogue doctor, so he didn't actually have a medical license. And so there was this element of, he was a genuinely good doctor, but no one really recognized him for his talents because he didn't have proper, you know, he didn't have the proper paperwork, wasn't born rich, so he didn't have the ability to go to medical school, and then the dude generally just kind of acted a little bit like a sleazy snake oil salesman, because that's just sort of what he did to get by for most of his life. Oh my, a hand sanitizer slime folk, that's brilliant. Oh my gosh. Alright, I'm gonna keep that one. I'm gonna let Automod hold on to that one. But yeah, bureaucracy does suck. It has its devilish importance. You know, at the end of the day, roads got to be built and all that good stuff. But like, yeah, that was definitely a character that just started off as like a goofy, haha, a rogue who has high deception. He's totally a doctor, right? Very gradually turned into a commentary on oligarchy and nepotism. What time is it? Okay, it's 3. So we still got plenty of time. I might take a small break in a little bit. Maybe... Huh. Yeah. Yeah, I might, Now I'm curious, is your character the one doing the caring, or is there a different character who is too attached to you? I presume it's the former. Oh boy. Nice. Man, that's... Whew. You know, I guess I shouldn't be all that surprised, considering your Discord is very sort of story-themed. That's deep, man. That's some capital L lore right there. Manipulating and becoming a okay. Demigod Chosen One, cut into 200 pieces, sealed away. Male goal, find all the pieces. Manipulating and becoming a goddess in order to do so. She will now... Yeah, die. Okay, yeah. Yeah, no. Crisp capital L lore. Love to see it. Yeah, no. I mean, my rogue doctor guy didn't really explain what exactly his problem was, aside from just his life circumstances. But what it slowly ended up happening was there were a couple times in which, you know, that character, just because of the way I allocated stats, wasn't super smart, and because he kind of played himself off as like a sort of bumbling kind of, you know, snake oil salesman, a lot of people immediately sort of assumed that he was an idiot, and like he wasn't, his like his medical knowledge was just completely, you know, a sham. And I, as a person, weirdly got like I never, you know, said it verbally, but like there was some part of me that was like, I'm not an idiot. Who does this person think they are, calling me stupid? And then I was like, oh wait, that's how he'd respond. He has an like his pride is incredibly fragile when it comes to his own intelligence, because everyone's told him that he isn't smart. It's like, oh, or maybe people assume that he was smart, and he's insecure himself, if he actually is. Like, interesting. Because, you know, I've... Not to get too personal, but, like, I've been very blessed with some very loving parents. But one of the sort of things that you kind of have to shape up to is when you get into the real world, it's like, oh, there are people who are just way smarter than you are. And no matter what anyone tells you when you're growing up, you kind of have to learn how to, you know, adapt and kind of humble yourself. Because otherwise, if you assume that you're the smartest person in the room, then you're never going to learn anything. And so there was a bit of that in that character as well, of kind of learning to be quiet and let other people take charge. Going around in circles here. I don't know why. Sometimes, like, I'll see the hole in a ceiling, and my brain will forget that that's an exit. Like, it feels like a lot of Metroidvania's games generally only connect rooms horizontally and not terribly vertically, but Hollow Knight doesn't care. They go up and down and all around, and so sometimes I'll see a hole in a ceiling, and my other Metroidvania knowledge will kick in and be like, you can't, you know, get up to a higher screen just by jumping upwards towards that hole. Yeah, no. I mean, I never want to, like, there's always, like, jokes of, like, D&D is cheaper therapy, and I would never recommend that as a... don't go seeking out a game that people want to pursue for fun, for the explicit purpose of unpacking your own baggage. That's just not a cool thing to do to friends. But absolutely, like, in the process of sort of going through the story and putting yourselves in the role of someone else, you kind of have to confront some parts about how you inherently react that's like, is that the character or is that just me? So I think it's great for teaching empathy in a way that is just like it's baked into the way the game's played, you know? So there's not really any learning curve to it. You just do it. Oh boy, that's the sound of my keyboard turning off. Yeah, that's cloth. Actually, I think Classic Girl? I can't remember. But yeah, cloth's cool. Cool dude all around. Yeah, no. I mean, like, I imagine the first time when the ground starts to rumble, it's like, oh god, what's about to happen? But nah, they just like chill in the dirt. I mean, what's stopping you? A shovel? I don't know where you live, but like, assuming the ground isn't. Oh, it's summer. Like, assuming you're American, then ground shouldn't be too hard. What's stopping you? What's stopping you from lying in the dirt? Responsibilities? Yeah, that's fair. But come on, it's Saturday. Right. Yeah, no, I should have remembered that. Yeah, you mentioned midnight on last night's stream, so I was like, oh, hey, we're same time zone. Yeah, funnily enough, I was, during that stream, I was playing through this during part of that stream, or the little bit that I caught of it. Not that it did much good for me, but, but hell yeah, EST for the win. Not like that cringe CST that's stuck to our side. Yeah, I mean, it's mostly, like, I feel like I wouldn't mind CST as much if they were just further away. Like, my brother, he lives in Central, and he's, like, just close enough for it to be... Yeah, he's just close enough for it to be reasonable for him to, like, come visit on the weekends every now and then. But then it's, like, just a hassle of, like, okay, what time is it when he's leaving? And what does that translate to when he arrives versus, like, when he leaves here and then goes back? Like, it's just that extra bit of mental math. It's just like, ugh. Gross. Yeah, I mean, okay. Here's the thing about freedom units. I am I try to be more of an imperial defender than most people, because I feel like a lot of people online are just like, oh, why don't we just switch to metric already? My criticism with the metric system, while it is so cool how it interacts with all other like units of measurement, and it's all clean and it's all like, powered, base 10, it's a super well designed measurement system. My problem with it is that its base units aren't super practical for our, big human sausage fingers. So, like, how much is 1 centimeter? Can you reliably measure 1 centimeter with your 2 fingers? Not really. It's, like, it's, 2.5 times smaller than an inch. So, like, you're really just kind of, like, putting a small gap in between your fingers, and it's like, yeah, that's like, maybe a centimeter. Whereas, like, an inch is just big enough for you to kind of, with some confidence, be like, okay, this is an inch. And it's the same thing with a meter. Like, a meter is just a little too long. Like, most people aren't, like, most people are like, what, like 150 to 180 centimeters? And it's like, that's gross. Whereas, like, with feet, it's like, okay, you are, like, 5 to 6 feet tall. Like, that's the general range of people. It's like, that's clean. A foot is a nice measurement for, something that's like, yay big. And then a yard is something that's like, half an arm length bit. Like, like the length of your arm, more or less. Granted, the conversion isn't super great, where it's like, okay, how do you remember how things go in? It's like, okay, those 12 inches to a foot, and then there's 3 feet to a yard, and then there's freaking like 1,800 yards to a mile. You got to learn mnemonics. 5 tomatoes for 5,280 feet per mile. Like, that's gross. That's not clean at all. Versus, how much is in a kilometer? 1,000 meters? What a kilo is? Like, don't get me wrong. I respect the metric system. I have a lot of respect for the metric system. And I wouldn't be opposed to, like, having both units of measurement being posted on things like speed limit signs, and, like, try and slowly transition America to incorporate metric more regularly. But I also think Imperial is just a very practical, simple system. Like, it's... once when you learn the rules, it really is nice of just like, okay, this thing is yay big, it's this big, I think the Imperial system was designed for humans, and the metric system was designed for everything else. Yeah, I mean, elementary tries to, like, cover so much. It's honestly kind of crazy, like, looking at elementary school itinerary, because, like, they don't really, whereas as you get later into, education, you'll dive really deep into a single subject. But elementary is like, okay, here is 30 different subjects, and we're learning all of this in, like, 2 months. Granted, it kind of makes sense when, kids have sort of a lower attention span, so it's more about trying to just kind of throw everything at the wall and hope some stuff sticks. But, like, they tried to teach us cursive in elementary school. They tried to, give us all of this stuff that most of us have just completely forgotten about. And most people don't remember the conversion rate. Like, I only remember the conversion rate from centimeters to inches. I don't remember any other conversion rate. If you ask me, like, how many kilometers are in a mile, I'm looking that up. I don't know. what is it, like 5/8 maybe? Maybe? Yeah, cursive, I can, if I spend enough time deciphering, I can generally read cursive, and I can sign my name, and that's about the extent of my cursive capability. But, you know, in all honesty, if we're... I think cursive, like, cursive was a way of writing that was meant to be very efficient and quick. But we've gotten to the point where most people write by typing. And so, like, how important is it that we teach an entire style of writing? Oh boy, okay, I need to hold on. I need to stop yapping. Come on. Whew, okay. Okay. Bow. 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 Yeah, I'm starting to realize that maybe maybe the reason I did so well in my third playthrough is because I wasn't trying to talk during it at all. Maybe that's got something to do with it. Who's to say? No. I want you to, like, I am having way more fun having someone to bounce off of than if I was just here by myself. Because as long as I'm streaming, as long as I've got like things recording and I'm looking at OBS on my second monitor, I feel obligated to talk. And so I'm either yapping about something that like is actually engaging, or I'm just yapping to yap. So believe me, I very much appreciate you being here. It's just sort of a funny commentary of, like, it's really is that kind of the classic Let's Player's curse of you perform a whole lot worse when you're trying to juggle something that you don't normally do, which is talk while playing. But yeah, we've got... Oof. Yeah, my brother dealt with migraines. Those aren't fun. I mean, if you need to, like, go and lie down, because, you know, if you're still hoping to stream tonight, it's not a good idea for you to just be on, all the time if you're feeling crummy. Yeah, actually, this is probably a good time. I needed to go see about my dog anyway, let him out. So I'll just go on break right now, and then I might come back in like 15 minutes or so. Cool.